My name is Monica Brown. I am the mother of 3 boys. I have one that's 24, one that's 20, and one that's 10. I'm also a teacher at Wetumpka High School. I teach family and consumer science, which probably in maybe some of your day it was called home ec. But I used my experience to talk to my students about a lot of different things. I'm also a breast cancer survivor. In July of 2008, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had 2 different types of breast cancer, and it was in both of my breasts. When I went to find the results back from the biopsy, and you know how all that goes, you go get a mammogram, they call you back, and you go back, and well, we got to do a biopsy. So I went back for the biopsy, and when it came back, that was my diagnosis. They said, do you have a surgeon you'd like to go to? Surgeon? I've never needed a surgeon. I've just had babies. So I said, what do you do? And they said, well, we can recommend one, or we can call your doctor and recommend one for you. And so that's what they did. They called my surgeon, who was Pamela Strickland, who's a surgeon in Montgomery. That day, she was able to see me. And it was like God opened that door for me, because I was devastated. My world had just folded down upon me, because I knew I had children. I had a wonderful husband, and I wanted to be with them. So I went to see Dr. Strickland, and she told me 2 things. First, she said, let me look at your test, and I'll be back. When she came back, she said 2 words to me. She said, Monica, she said, it's survivable and it's treatable. And I couldn't tell you another word she told me that whole visit, because I knew then I was going to be okay. She said, but we got a long way to go. So we started the journey. I had surgery, and I had good results with my surgery. And then she sent me to my oncologist. Well, the doctor did further tests to make sure that I needed to take chemotherapy. So I had to agree that when he sent off my tissue that I would take it if it came back I needed to. But I knew that I was going to be okay. I thought, I got to do this because I've got to take care of my children. So I went and I had the test. Well, it came back I needed chemotherapy. So I had to take 8 rounds. Well, one of the treatment I took was the Red Devil. And if any of you have had to take chemotherapy, you know what I'm talking about. It's the one that makes your hair fall out, that you lose your eyebrows, your eyelashes, I mean the whole works. But I thought, you know, I can do this, because I had faith that God was going to take care of me. So I went through 8 rounds of chemotherapy, 36 rounds of radiation. I would go take my treatment on Friday, and I told you in the beginning that I'm a teacher at Wetumpka High School. I would take my treatment on Friday, and by Wednesday I was back at school with my students. Well, my students were wonderful. And when I would come back, they would have little gifts on my table for me. And they would take care of me. And they would ask questions, and I would explain it to them. So I felt like that they learned a lot about breast cancer survivor that particular year. They also learned that I had faith, that I was going to get through this. I have a saying above my door in my house that says, faith is not believing that God can, it's knowing that He will. And so I knew by going through this that God was going to take care of me. And I feel like God has. Now, I still go. I go for treatment. I go, not treatment, I go for tests. And then I have to go every 6 months for follow-up. And so far, and I'm not going to wood if I had some, but so far everything's good. And I just think that it was from prayer, and it was from having good doctors and just having faith that God was going to take care of me. But, you know, God is good. I told my class today, I told them, I said, you know, God is good, and He takes care of us, and He will continue. And, you know, a support system is another thing that helped me, where people would call me. There was a good friend of mine. Her name is Scarlett Ryan. The day that I found out I had cancer, the next day she was in my driveway. She is also a breast cancer survivor, but she was there not to tell me what to do, but just to be there as a friend to listen and to you know, answer questions if I had them. Because unless you've been through something like this, you really don't have any idea of what it's like. And so, you know, a good support system, a good church family. My church was wonderful with me, and then of course my students at the high school and my family. And I grant a lot of, you know, my surviving to them, because it gave me the strength to keep going.